perfect, thank you. So when we look at table 4.1, one of the most important things I want you to see is your anterior pituitary gland. How many of you, number one, how'd you wake up today? One alarm. Water. Okay, let me tell you what you did, number 6. You were like, I am so thankful for my pituitary gland. Did anyone do that? You weren't thankful for your pituitary gland when you woke up this morning? You should be, because look at all of the things that your pituitary gland does for you. Number 1, it creates this thing called growth hormone. Look at all the jobs of growth hormone. And farther on in your book, we're going to even talk more about growth hormone. Growth hormone is my second favorite hormone ever. Number 1 is testosterone. Number 2 is growth hormone. So when you think about growth hormone, as it relates to everyday life, it's fabulous. But as it relates to athleticism and performance, it is one of the key anabolic. Hey, remind me what anabolic means. Small to big. It's one of those small to big hormones that we can really see start to making some changes. So you guys look at that. I mean, it's responsible. Now listen, it also is responsible for stimulating growth hormone, which then is also secreted from the liver. So listen what's cool. Have y'all ever done that thing where you lined up a bunch of dominoes and all of a sudden you pushed one domino over and then what started to happen? The dominoes began to fall. That is the beauty of hormones. One hormone can cause another hormone to trigger, which can cause another hormone to trigger. And that can take place either anabolically or what? Catabolically. So what if you were either engaging yourself, or even worse, what if you were writing a strength training program for someone else that was causing them to be chronically catabolic? Would your program be awesome or terrible? Terrible. Terrible. What do we want our athletes to be? Chronically anabolic. What do we want them to be? What do we want them to be? What do we want them to be? Chronically anabolic. We want our athletes, we want ourselves to be anabolically driven as it comes to all of our skeletal muscle. Remember, what was the only kind of snafu that we talked about being a really positive catabolic experience? Digestion. Excellent. Whenever we eat food, we want those big particles to break down. So that's a positive thing. Otherwise, we want to stay chronically anabolic. Okay? So again, growth hormone, anterior pituitary gland, triggers the liver to do all of those things. If you look about all those things, you guys, our thyroid gland is so important because it actually starts to help. And you guys, again, pituitary gland now is triggering thyroid gland. The thyroid gland is so responsible for every bit of our metabolic rate. We see more and more and more thyroid dysfunction now. And really, we really don't know why. Y'all know me, those of y'all that have had me in sports nutrition, I tend to think it's a big conspiracy theory that we're eating so much junk that it's causing thyroid dysfunction, that it's causing growth hormone dysfunction, that it's causing people to be chronically catabolic instead of chronically anabolic. So, you guys, so many things. The first domino is the anterior pituitary gland because it really does trigger so many things on down the line. Let's talk for a minute about this thing called the luteinizing hormone and also this thing called prolactin. So do you remember how we talked about it'll eventually get a little bit PG-13? Now this is when we start to talk about your anterior pituitary gland produces this thing called the luteinizing hormone. And if you look at it, it actually says it stimulates ovulation as well as the secretion of sex hormones in the gonads, the ovaries, and testes. Now, tell me what kind of people you are. Okay. Now, who do you think, males or females, which thyroid gland, male or female, is actually going to produce more luteinizing hormone? Would you say male or female? Female, okay? Because, yeah, I was going to say, because think about this, you guys. We're stimulating, you guys, follicles in the ovaries. So you guys, this is one of those hormones that's responsible for females ovulating and being ready to have that ovum sitting there and potentially be exposed, if you were nice, to all of a sudden have that opportunity to procreate the species. So that's really important. Now, one of the things that we have to understand, we see hormones that primarily affect females and hormones that primarily affect males. But do all people produce small amounts of all hormones, yes or no? Yes. And here's another fun example. When we look at prolactin, this is what stimulates milk production in the mammary glands. Now, what we know is there are different times when different hormones really are being produced in more mass quantity. Now, is anyone in the room pregnant? Maybe you don't want to share. Maybe you do. Okay, so here's what we know. We know that all of a sudden, if you are pregnant, especially the closer you get towards the end of that pregnancy, you will actually, because of your anterior pituitary gland, you will start to produce more prolactin. Some smart person in the room, tell me why. What are you going to need to do after that person lands on the earth? You're going to need to feed that person. Okay, and so it's great because all of a sudden you produce prolactin, which signals your body to all of a sudden turn into this massive milk factory. Okay, it's a beautiful thing. It's amazing. I highly recommend it if you can swing it. If it doesn't work in your lifestyle, that's just as well also, but if you can make that work. Now, question of the day. Can you, take a breath, you're like, she's really going to ask an awkward question. I am. Can you give enough external prolactin to a male to have them have the ability to create milk? Yes or no? Probably. Yes. Yes, because your body will respond to whatever you ask it to. So if all of a sudden you're, I love that face, Casey. Casey's back there going, I wish you could have seen that on camera. Okay? It's so interesting when you stop and think about it, because we know that when we start to jack with, and that's really high scientific term, when we start to mess with or jack with the hormones in our body, all your body can do is say, well, yeah, I guess we'll do that. It's an amazing thing. I mean, guys, stop and think about it. Again, we're talking PG-13. You have mammary glands, they're just not really active. You have nipples, you have all the right equipment, okay? What you don't have as much of is you typically don't go through that process of having a baby, which stimulates to turn the prolactin on. But if we all of a sudden started injecting you with prolactin, your body would say, send the milk. That's really what it would do. It's a crazy, beautiful thing. And that being said, that's why I tell people, and especially younger people, please, 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 one more time, say please. Please. Don't jack with your hormones in a weird way any earlier in your life than you have to. Now, I am an advocate of birth control, okay? And once you have them, you understand how hard they are, okay? And don't try not to have them until like you're really ready for that stage of your life. So I am an advocate for that. But I really am an advocate also, and I tell men this, don't start supplementing with testosterone, with extra growth hormone, with extra, because here's what happens. You are in this beautiful prime of your life where your factories are in high drive, which that's awesome. if you start supplementing external hormones, that sends a signal to your factories to stop making the product on their own. So therefore, and I tell people this, with the exception of birth control, once you get committed or once you decide that you're going to mess with your endocrine system, you're basically committing to do it the rest of your life. I mean, and I see people that, you know, in that, I mean, you guys, we have people that are probably working out right now in the rec center that are shooting tests. And I'm like, okay, you're 22 years old and you're starting to shoot testosterone. You love the results. You're going to have to do it the rest of your life. Because you're messing with your chemistry of the things going on in your life. Yes, Lauren.